You are now tuned in to the TNS podcast. Here's your host, Jay Curtis Strickland.
Welcome, my friends. Do me a favor, like, comment, share, subscribe, click on that bell for notifications. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a follow, give us a rating. That would be most excellent and very helpful. That increases the visibility for the show. So please do all those things. You'd be awesome if you did. I have a merchandising company, Hell's Heart Merch Co. Go on over to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com and use the code podcast for 20% off your entire order. They are fine Bella Canvas Next Level Tri-Blend t-shirts. They feel amazing. If you like movies, if you like hardcore, we've got some film-inspired t-shirts on there, and we also do some shirts for some hardcore bands, so please check it out. I think you'll really be into them. All right. Blending blistering speed, chaotic riffs, and crushing metallic atmospheres, Santa Sangre and With Teeth represent two powerful forces in modern hardcore. Santa Sangre bringing fast, ferocious chaos, driven aggression rooted in the raw spirit of underground punk, while With Teeth channel a darker, heavier metallic edge built on crushing riffs and emotionally charged intensity, together embodying the uncompromising energy, community, and catharsis that define the hardcore scene. And tonight, we're joined by the man bringing that fury to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome vocalist Kevin Passerell. Happy 315 day, Kevin.
Hey. Thanks. Yeah. Happy 315 day, everybody.
Yeah. 315. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not from the area.
Yeah.
315. Yeah. The 315, Syracuse, New York, although my family is from there. But yeah, absolutely. What's going on with you today, man?
Just honestly, just waiting to do the podcast, kind of excited about it, just chilling for the weekend, you know.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you, man. Well, my first question for you, sir, is what was your relationship to music growing up? What was kind of playing in your household? And then how did that lead into you playing music?
Honestly, it's sort of strange. Like, there was not a lot of music growing up. My parents didn't really listen to music. It was mostly like Casey Kasem top 40 type stuff on the weekends while my mom was cleaning. It didn't mean it didn't resonate with me though. Definitely, well, my kind of the earliest record that I remember owning was Michael Jackson Thriller. And I used to just, spin that constantly and perform to imaginary kids jumping on the couch and pointing around and all the same stuff I guess I do now, but on a different level. I can remember pretending like girls from my class were like in audiences. I stand on the couch and sort of point. And then I guess I didn't progress too much further from that. I just kind of stayed in that level.
I hear you.
Yeah.
What did you play in any sort of like proto bands before you got into Santa Sangre and With Teeth? Like, did you have any garage or high school bands?
Yeah, when I first got into hardcore, I was in a band called Self-Infliction, which was essentially just high school buddies just kind of figuring it out. And essentially we started off kind of just playing heavy music. Now we knew what hardcore was, but just through mutual friends of different promoters and things, they're like, oh, well, you're kind of a hardcore band. So, started putting us on shows, and then we got more and more involved in the scene. And that band evolved into a band called One Against All that I actually did One Against All simultaneously with Santa Sangre there for a little bit. So, Cleveland-based hardcore.
That's right. You are from the Cleveland scene. We did have this discussion before. And what kind of attracted you to hardcore and, to kind of tie that in together, like what was your first non-metal and hardcore concert, and then how did that lead into, aside from playing in the bands, like what was your first hardcore and punk show?
Yeah. Okay. Well, my first concert show, whatever, period, was my 16th birthday. So it's very easy to remember. I can tell you the exact date and everything. And it was pretty heavy. It was 9 Inch Nails, May 9th, 1994.
Oh,
and
shit.
to put it in perspective, that was the Downward Spiral had just come. This is pre-Closer 9 Inch Nails. So like the Closer single had not come out yet. So they had not quite blown up. I mean, they were a relatively big band, and they're from Cleveland, and it sold out in like a record-breaking amount of time. And I was just lucky enough that I think it was a friend of mine's girlfriend's boyfriend was in line somewhere and got us tickets, and we went. And it honestly has set the bar. It was just, I mean, there's part of that, like the fear of the unknown of a concert, and you're afraid people are going to like drug your drinks and all these like horror stories that you hear. But it made it that much more fun and exciting. And yeah, and it was incredible. It was at the Agora in Cleveland. And so if people are familiar, I mean, I've seen a bunch of different bands there, Bad Religion, Bjork, Hatebreed, you know, but it's not a massive place. Not, you know, actually, so that was in May. I saw them at an outdoor venue in August that same year. And then I think it was December or January. So like they were playing like a stadium. So like in 9 months time, they went from like essentially a club level to like stadium level, just having blown up in that time. So that was my first show. And so I really didn't go to any like non-heavy type stuff. It was always pretty heavy stuff. My parents didn't take me to like, you know, classic rock or anything like that. I hit the ground running for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that was such a killer album, you know, because I've seen 9 Inch Nails a handful of times, and every time they play like The Becoming, holy shit, like the strobes going off and just the pure aggression and just the intensity coming off the stage, like it's incredible. And I have always thought that they are amazing artists, and yeah, what a show to be able to see at age 16.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was fantastic, honestly. Yeah.
Who opened for them? Do you remember?
I do remember Femme de Femme, which was like a lesbian techno band, and Marilyn Manson, who no one had heard of. So it was, you know, pre-Portrait of American Family Manson as well. I think that record came out in August that same year. So this is, you know,
they were right on the precipice of blowing up.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's insane, man. Yeah, just what an era for music. That was a hell of a time. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, the 80s and 90s were just phenomenal times. I think it's like the Renaissance era of music. You know, there was just so much great stuff going on, and I think we didn't realize it because we're in the middle of it. Just the number of hits being turned out, regardless of genre, and it's just all the classic stuff that the radio stations, quite frankly, that's all they're playing now is 80s and 90s music. Even today, God. It's like, yeah, it's because nothing's gotten any better. So,
well, it's the worst when you're in the grocery store and you hear like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. You're like, oh
yeah.
Let me get my cane and let me go home and put some Vicks Vapor Rub on. Yeah, fuck. Yeah,
I know it's crazy. You know, I've got 2 young kids, and you know, we're at that point now where like the songs that were controversial are now like being played in like Disney movies because it's like, oh, well, the parents will think it's fun. It's like, you know, Dr. Dre or, you know, whatever. And it's like, what? The gangster rap stuff is.
There was this one where I think it was a Peter Pan movie with like Hugh Jackman, and they were singing Smells Like Teen Spirit a cappella. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, come on. It was kind of cringy, but you know, somebody I'm sure appreciated it. But were you into like Pretty Hate Machine and like Broken before?
Okay. I had Pretty Hate Machine. That's actually one of, arguably it could be the earliest hard record that I owned. I remember my grandpa drove me to a record store when I was young, like this is CDs, and I was born in '78, so I couldn't have been, older than 11, like my son's age, like 11 probably. And I went in by myself and picked out the Pretty Hate Machine set, at the time. And it's kind of one of those things where you're kind of keeping it hidden because your
Sure.
parents probably wouldn't want you listening to it,
Right.
but that just adds to the mystique and the lure of the whole thing. Yeah.
I had Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar, and it was like I had to have a friend give it to me in a paper bag at high school, and just I hid it under the bed, and I was like thumbing through the artwork, and I was like, I'll get in so much trouble if they catch me with this,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can, I had friends same thing, like, and they're like, late teens kind of thing, and I'm like, oh, my parents will burn it if they find. Actually,
Yep.
I think a friend's mom did burn Nine Inch Nails, record that they they found in his possession. But yeah, that's funny.
Wow. That's what a time to be
Yeah.
alive. And you said you had been playing in a band, and then they were saying you were a hardcore band, and you were playing at least for a period of time before you got involved in Santa Sangre. So
Yeah.
you have some familiarity with the Cleveland hardcore scene. And you and I had talked before offline, and you had mentioned Don Foos, Spud
Oh, yeah.
Monsters, Run Devil Run. What an awesome guy. So who else did you really kind of appreciate within the Cleveland hardcore scene?
Yeah, the Cleveland stuff, definitely Don Foos, and everything. When I first got in, it was still Spud Monsters, but that, even, evolved into Run Devil Run, and, kind of knew some of the guys that had been, like Mike Ski was, playing bass, I think at one point for that band and everything. So, and I loved Brothers Keeper. I kind of grew up halfway between Cleveland and Erie. So like, to me, they're kind of both, like kind of hometowns in a sense, I just, especially with the hardcore stuff. Erie was a much friendlier town, so I didn't have as many, I guess, friends in Cleveland. But I've heard other people say, that's just kind of part of the scene, and part of, the scariness of the scene was just, part of what was attractive about it. Quite honestly,
Yeah.
I can remember going and seeing like One Life Crew and being like right up front at like the Fantasy nightclub, which has like a stage that's like knee height, and I'm like, man, what am I doing like right up front? Because it was scary, but that's like what was so great about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it makes sense, Erie being kind of a less intimidating scene, but damn, what a scene. Like, so many good bands that are, like you said, Brothers Keeper and Disciple and Shockwave, and holy shit, like, definitely. Who else? Was Schoolyard Bully? Weren't they from Erie?
No, I don't think so. They were on SA Mob.
SA Mob, yeah.
EMS's label.
Right.
Santa Sangre's demo was on SA Mob. I did not sing on that demo, but that was on SA Mob as well. I think that's a Philadelphia band, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. But yeah, SA Mob, what a hell of a label.
Like, it was
putting out
awesome.
So many bangers.
Back, right before I joined Santa Sangre, I was in college. I went to college in Dayton, so I did a lot of shows in that kind of part of the country as well. Like, so we were going to shows in like Detroit and Toledo and Louisville and Cincinnati and stuff. And so that's my college years. Was a bunch of shows in that, and of course Dayton. So that's kind of where I was just prior to Santa Sangre, because I was just finishing up college when I got in that band, and my plan was to move to Erie at that time, and I was gonna initially work at Eric EMS's record store that he had. It was like a record store / tattoo parlor, Ink Assassins. It's still there as a tattoo place. The record part, records but I used to manage a record store, and he knew that, and I did a distro, which I don't know if you might be too young to remember distros as well, but
No, I
that
remember like remember Very distro?
Oh yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I was like one of those guys that would, carry boxes and boxes of, typically it was compact disc CDs for the kids. But yeah, carrying those to shows, and I'd set them up and sell, various, like a lot of Trustkill stuff was always very popular, and
Yeah.
and Josh would always hook me up if I saw him in person, with like, kind of below what it would cost to get it through, like, a lumberjack or a different, like, larger distribution place. And
Yep.
I used to pedal, so EMS knew me from that world. And he knew I used to manage a record store, and he was like, yeah, if you could come, essentially work, because Brothers Keeper was going to be doing a lot of touring, and like, you help me manage the record store. So I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. Then in the meantime, Santa Sangre is looking for a singer, and again, he put out their EP, and he actually filled in on bass when Busky broke his arm at one point. And he was like, oh, yeah, like, kind of like, I'll put in a good word for you. You should definitely try out for that band. Your vocals would work really well with that. And the rest is history. So, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Santa Sangre, let's play a little clip here. Holy fucking shit. I wish I was at that show.
Yeah, me too. That wasn't me singing, actually. That was
not.
No, it wasn't. That was Bone. Bone was
Okay.
the original singer. He did not sing on the demo either, the one that SA Mob put out. But that was my Zor sing on that. But yeah, so I'm technically the third singer. Thank God I'm the one on the full length. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and actually they were signed to Eulogy without a singer, so there was a lot of pressure to sort of find
somebody
to work. And yeah, and a little known fact, and people get surprised by this, especially people that know JD, the guitarist for Santa Sangre. Jonathan, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jonathan Dennison. He is very particular, which is part of why all of his stuff is awesome. But believe it or not, when I tried out, for some reason, he was unable to make that. So I got the job without Jonathan hearing me, which everyone's like, what? He allowed that to happen, but I guess he, just believed everybody else. They were like, this guy is the best one that's tried out by far. Just trust us. And now, having not known him, now I'm like, that's crazy. How in the world did that happen? But again, happy it did. And
was that kind of his band?
Well, he's I'd say main songwriter. I mean, he definitely was main songwriter, not to discount anything that Busky did. And of course, Corey, even way back then, Corey, a lot of the reviews and stuff were, I guess, sort of amazed at how drum focused that record was, that band was. And he's just a phenomenal drummer, and one of my best friends. So yeah, it's been great, playing in front of him with him behind me. And I've said that it's kind of like, I feel like at times my heartbeat plays to the rhythm of his drums. You know what I mean? It's that, like, it's got that, it just gets inside of you.
And you guys had members of Another Victim and The Promise, yes. Jonathan and Busky, and
yep.
Were those bands going at the same time as Santa Sangre was, or was that?
Yeah, actually, actually, both of those bands technically were, even though Another Victim became The Promise, more so than Another Victim became Santa Sangre. Although we definitely certainly kind of got that analogy as well, that it was kind of the progression. but they didn't completely put away another victim immediately. And I think we played shows together, if I'm not mistaken. But then that kind of became the promise. So yeah.
And the name Santa Sangre comes from one of my favorite directors, Alejandro Jodorowsky's film Santa Sangre. And you had mentioned that you weren't in the band whenever
Correct,
the
yeah.
name was picked, but you actually went on a trajectory of film study for a while. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's why I was in Dayton when I went to college. They had like one of the best bang for your buck film schools. If anybody knows me, I'm always about the bang for the buck. So I did not go to like New York, or LA, NYU. I know, yeah. Like NYU, it was funny because we would have people that went through our program, and then they would go to NYU, and they would say the graduate program at NYU was like freshman year at the school I went to at Wright State is where I went. Now I think it's called like the Tom Hanks Center of Motion Picture Production or something like that. He donated a bunch of money, but that was after I went there. But yeah, it was mostly like documentary heavily focused there. The head of the department, well, actually not the head, but like the teachers that taught junior and senior year, and it was very like my junior and senior year. I mean, I think it was like maybe junior year was 12 students, and then like 8 senior year. So there was a lot of heavy like cutting to even. And the only thing that kept me on board, by the way, was not my film stuff. I actually did not try out for junior year because I didn't think I had any good film, anything to submit, because you were supposed to, submit and kind of almost like an interview to get in. And I actually got in because the head of the department saw promise in me. And he's like, well, why aren't you trying out? And I was like, oh, I just didn't think I had anything good enough. But a big part of it was that they knew I was like a punk rock singer, and they liked that because they were kind of hippies, and they were like, oh, that's cool. He's an iconoclast. He's, so they saw that drive in me. They were like, because he's not applying it to film doesn't mean that he's not artistic and doesn't deserve to be in the program. So, yeah, I'm always sort of forever grateful, even though I'm not doing anything with my degree at all, but I am grateful that they threw me in under that recognition that I was an artist in my own right.
So you had some inspiration from watching films, I'm assuming. What were some films that you were watching growing up that really kind of prompted you to take that career path? What are some ones that you really enjoyed?
That's a great question. I'm sure, and it's a very generic answer because it was very big, at the time when I was going to film school. Like a lot of people wanted to go, in particular because Quentin Tarantino. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep. It's a little on the nose. But there's definitely some truth in it. I saw that movie in the theater. It was definitely double digits how many times I saw Pulp Fiction in the theater.
Wow.
Because it just kept going, and I thought it was so entertaining, so well written. It's a great. I actually just watched it again. I think I was purposely saving it. Don't watch it again and it had been. It might have been 20 years, honestly. And I just watched it on a whim because I was scrolling through Netflix and it said leave soon. And I was like, oh, yeah, let me watch it. And then afterwards I was like, I think I was supposed to be saving that. Like it was going to be a more like a religious experience to watch it again. But I was surprised at how much I had forgotten, like some of the scenes, obviously the lesser important ones, but it's such a good film.
Oh yeah. It still stands up and, yeah, I guess sort of a basic answer for like, it's not like, film snobbish type answer. Oh yeah, I watched Bellatar or something like that. It was really a fantastic movie. And there was a period of time where I remember the only movies he had out were Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. And I watched the shit out of those movies because they really are good. They're really well written. I remember we used to walk up to our local video store because it was only like a block away, and we rented those religiously. And then whenever Jackie Brown came out, we're like, holy shit, Tarantino's got a new movie coming out. We gotta watch this. And you know, I like Jackie Brown probably more than I did now, but I was like, it was a little bit of a letdown because it wasn't as violent and
Yeah.
probably visceral, you know. But rewatching it now, I think it's a great film.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All of those honestly are. And going back and answer your question further, that definitely was part of the catalyst. But also, I had worked on a major motion picture, I guess, and I was in martial arts, and through that, the school that I went to, the instructor in particular, was kind of dialed into the film scene, which there isn't much of one in Cleveland, but he was dialed into it and, got us on, well, I was in the movie Double Dragon, which when we were shooting that, this has been brought up in previous, it's kind of silly, especially seeing the movie because it is such a silly movie. But I will tell you, when we were shooting that film, we thought it was going to be your classic, like martial arts movie. Leon was in that movie, and he was in, if you know who he is, he's kind of a character actor, but
Lethal
he's in
Weapon,
every martial
Die
arts.
Hard, yeah,
yeah, you're like sitting there talking to the guy, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome, and hearing people's stories that like so much of that crew had been on the set of The Crow when Brandon Lee was, accidentally killed. And
right.
because this was shortly after that, and I think some of them, it was literally the next film they worked on after that, and just getting to hear those stories, and it was just, it was cool. So that was, you're seeing how films are made, and honestly, that's how I even got into freshman year of the film school, because they only let like 100 kids in, and my orientation was the last of all the orientations. I think they said that it filled up at the first orientation, which I had no idea would be a thing. So I remember meeting with the head of like the creative arts department or something, and she was like, "Well, why do you think you deserve?" Well, I've already worked on a major motion picture, and I had been an assistant, like stunt and fight choreographing, on smaller like local Cleveland films and stuff, and I think they kind of shoehorned me in and got me in. So.
And you played a character in that.
Yeah, I actually got paid to be in it, so I was a featured extra, not just an extra. But I was a gang member,
Oh, okay.
I kind of had like an AC/DC kind of like get up. It was the gang that I was in, and I can watch the film like, oh, there I am, because I'm all over the friggin' place. There's no continuity with the extras, right. But I'm banging on a Hummer, which at the time, like, no one had actually seen, it was like a military vehicle still at that time. They hadn't been released for commercial use and stuff yet. But it was definitely a lot of fun. I was excused out, like I'm getting off of school. I was like a freshman in high school, and getting excused to go, get paid to be in a movie. It's like, that's doesn't get any better than that,
Yeah, that's far out, man. That's really intense. And I've actually never seen the movie, but I'm familiar with it because I watch a lot of movie channels. Well, I mean, it's got Robert Patrick, who is probably hot off Terminator, and then Alyssa Milano, and then I remember
she was not so friendly. I didn't really meet her. Like, she was offish, I guess, is the best. And maybe rightfully, like, she didn't really have any scenes with the gangs, or at least not when I was doing the, so there was nothing really being shot. She was there. I saw her from afar. And that's where she met Scott Wolf. I think they ended up getting married. Scott Wolf, on the other hand, this is pre-Party of Five Scott Wolf. So he was very down to earth. And I can remember my best friend at the time saw him coming out of his trailer or whatever. I was like, oh, hey, I saw you. He did like a guest spot on, I don't know, insert sitcom or something of the time, maybe 90210 even or something. And he was like, oh, you saw that? My mom taped it for me. Like, he was so excited that he had this like little cameo on whatever show.
Right.
And that was, again, before Party of Five, when he became like a known person.
Sure.
But he was really down to earth. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Alyssa Milano because I mean, she was a child actress,
Yeah.
who's the boss, and then Commando, and she
Oh yeah.
probably, you know, dealt
Yeah,
with
I would
shit
have.
like that before.
I would have not been able to talk. I'm sure. Just he's like one of not my earliest kind of celebrity crush, so to speak. Like just being a
Yeah.
kid of that age. She's a little bit older than me. And just watching Who's the Boss, and I would have been starstruck for sure.
I played an extra in a Leonard Nimoy movie, actually, and it was starring Patricia Arquette and a very young
nice.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was called Holy Matrimony. Terrible movie, but I went up and talked to Patricia Arquette and asked for her autograph, and like I was so young, like I was at an age where I didn't yet talk to any girls, and here I am talking to one of the most like beautiful actresses at the time in Hollywood, and she was so sweet and so like gracious and stuff, and so yeah, I could feel you on the
timeline of that. What was the
that
timeline
was
of
1994 as well. That was
okay.
Yeah, this was
so post
right after True Romance. Yes,
yeah.
yes. In fact, were we filming it in 93? No, it was probably post True Romance, but yeah, she was super awesome. I wasn't allowed to talk to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like I wasn't really supposed to be talking to any of them, but
anybody.
I was a 10-year-old kid. I didn't give a shit. I was like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, so, but no, that's really cool, man. That was in Great Falls, Montana. Yeah. And
nice.
yeah, I think my dad, he didn't work on the film, but he helped find, I think, the property for it. And then another one of my friend's dad was like one of the production designers on it. He was like an architect and kind of helped design the sets and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really cool. It was a really kind of special time. Yeah, definitely. But so you moved out of that field, and you said that was to play with Santa Sangre, correct?
Yeah. So I was finishing up college. I actually never finished my senior thesis project, which my concentration was in screenwriting, which I guess they had offered some classes in it earlier, like 10 years prior or something like that, and it kind of went away because I think the demand for it had gone away, and again maybe because of like the Quentin Tarantinos and the Kevin Smiths of the world, where people were getting more like back into that like kind of like writing style. There was a group of us that were very interested in that, and myself, being one of them. And it really is, that's kind of more what I'm made out to be. I'm a very like cerebral, like I like to think and draft, and it actually negatively affects like what I do in my what I actually do for work, because I could draft an email for like a week. If an email is 5 minutes, I'll take a week on it. Go, maybe I should word it like this. This would be more impactful. But yeah. That was my concentration. But then I got the opportunity to be in Santa Sangre, and they were a themed band, and with tour aspirations, and I was like, what time am I going to be like at a point where I'm getting ready to do something different anyways? Like I just up and go and do it, and so that's what I did. It was perfect, and that kind of sidetracked me from doing anything in film. But I'm not disappointed in that.
That's good. But according to Discogs, I want to make sure I'm getting this correct. You guys had a pretty short shelf life from 99 to 2001. Is that correct?
That is, yep, correct. And I joined the end of 2000, like November of 2000. So I was only in the band for about a year. It was obviously the most productive year. But yeah, it was essentially, I think, November to November, November of 2000 to November of 2001.
Wow. And what happened?
9/11 definitely probably played a little bit of it. Misfortune with, it didn't blow up the way I think all of us had anticipated. But in particular, I think the two Jonathans, having been in Another Victim prior to, and having, they had, some great tour runs, like they went out with Earth Crisis and VOD. And, when you're doing that, you're kind of expecting that. Now, obviously, if people heard who we went out with, they'd be like, well, your run was even better with Kill Switch Engage and Every Time I Die. And you were like rotating headliners. So it wasn't like you were like some opening act. But it was before those bands blew up. It was just bad timing. And, we're playing to bands in some locations. I mean, it just wasn't as cool as it should have or could have been at most of the shows. And it was financially taxing. And then 9/11 happened. I'll fast forward a little bit, but because we went off and did the West Coast, and actually we were at Scott Vogel's house on 9/11, which is a cool tour story, in that it's a very cool time. Everyone knows where they were on September 11th, 2001. If you're 30 or older or whatever the math would be. If you're old,
I was in Japan.
Oh, nice. So how old were you? You had to be young, right? Were you?
I was like 17, 18, something like that. Yeah.
What were you doing in Japan at 17, 18? Military? Or?
Yeah. That was exceptionally scary because, we watched the first plane and thinking it was an accident, and then the second plane hit and was like, we are going to fucking war. Like,
and you're like,
without a doubt,
I just signed up for the military. That's the worst possible.
Let me tell you something. I kick myself every day for saying this, because I joined in August of 2000, and then it was like shortly after that the USS Cole was bombed. But I was like thinking, this is kind of a minor scrape or whatever. And I remember telling one of my friends, I was like, I don't think we'll ever see a conflict on the scale that Vietnam was. And holy fuck, like if I could take that back, I would, because it's like fucking 20 years later, we're still involved in it, and like, it was, nothing was going on at the time, but then it happened. But fortunately, circumstances beyond my control got me out, so I didn't end up going. But everybody, that's a very vivid day for everybody for sure. But you were there, and then what happened?
On 9/11, you mean? What happened on that day? Well, we drove through the night. We were coming, I think, from California, which we had an awesome run in California. We were on that leg of the tour. It was Sky Came Falling and Hoods. And we had played in, Corona, California, San Diego, and actually the guys in Bleeding Through, without even asking us, because this is, not to sound like I'm super old, but this is kind of like pre-cell phone. I mean, people had cell phones, but you weren't calling people or texting people or messaging them on anything, so they were like, they kind of us, and they put us on a show, like a daytime show at a kind of a punk rock record store the night after our show in Corona. And they were like, we put you on with us. So we assumed you'd want to do it, and we ended up playing that. And it was, I think, the same day we played San Diego. So it was kind of like, it's kind of on the way to San Diego. So we played a punk rock record store. And then, then played San Diego later that night. And this is probably like September 20th or something, or I'm sorry, September 10th. And then we ended up driving through the night. I don't think our van had air conditioning or anything. So it was like, we're going through the desert, let's drive through the night. And we ended up in, wherever we were, Scottsdale, Arizona, I think, Phoenix area. But I think, Tempe, maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of those cities that are kind of right on top of each other there. But we drove through the night. We checked in a hotel, and Busky went in to you just get the room or whatever, and he had his New York driver's license, to check us in. And he's like, they said there's some crazy stuff happening back where And we're like, huh? And like, yeah, something about a plane hitting a building or something. And we're like, oh, okay, huh? And I was thinking like a little prop engine kind of plane. And we went in and turned the TV on, and I think it was as one of the two buildings was coming down was essentially when we turned the TV on, and we were like, whoa, this is something way different like than what we thought it was going to be.
Right.
And yeah, we still played a show that night, and in between we went to a barbecue at Scott Vogel's house, and which
That must have been a pretty somber moment.
yeah, well, and I don't even really remember. It's kind of sucks because that would have been fun to like hang out and just be at Scott Vogel's house or whatever, and I mean I have little bits and flashes of his being there, but not much. I remember the TV kind of being on, people kind of paying attention to that, and and then I remember playing the show, and it was pretty vivid, the show, just because it was kind of a unique venue where it was kind of like behind us was open, but I remember like looking up at the sky, and of course you're kind of in the desert, even though it's kind of a city. There's less light pollution, but we're just remarking that there was like no lights in the sky, like there was no planes, because everything was grounded
Shut
at that
down.
point. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, very kind of just a very somber and odd time. It was strange. People still came out to the show, which you weren't sure, but it's kind of like, well, what? And nothing else is really happening. It was just a weird,
Yeah.
just a weird
Yeah.
time to be on the road. And then the shows got weird after that, and I think we kind of cut the tour a little short. And I know we played in Texas and things, but I think we kind of sped it up and just kind of went home. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so the band ran its course, and then did you play in anything in the interim between that and with Teeth?
Yeah, the biggest band I did in there, I was in a band called Ego Destroys, and that was with Corey, the drummer from Santa Sangre, and we did that band. Well, they were before another band that existed with a different singer, but I was in that band. Actually, I joined the band in 2014, and I think we ran until about 2020. We had kind of gone on a hiatus. We aren't technically broken up. We just haven't played, but we kind of went on hiatus right around COVID, and then COVID happened, and we lost our practice spot, which was unfortunate, and it literally got bulldozed, but it was the coolest place ever. So that kind of took the wind out of our sails. But that band Destroyers, that was cool with Corey and Devin and Daniel from True Blue. Daniel, German Dan. So he's a German guy, if you're familiar. True Blue, Patrick Kitzel's thing for that band, who did Reaper Records. And actually, the very first Santa Sangre show of our tour, as we were leaving, we played with True Blue in Syracuse right as we were leaving for tour. And the guys in Ego Destroyers would always kind of remark that like all of us were in that room that day, and it was just kind of at the Planet 505, which people from Syracuse would know and remember. It's there as like a diner or something now, but yeah, it's kind of a smaller place, and we were all there at time, but yeah.
What was the sound of that band? Because that was one that I was not familiar with. What were you guys kind of channeling?
That's probably the most hard, like traditional like hardcore band I've done. It definitely had its heavy moments, but it had, I started experimenting with some lighter kind of singing as well. I'm trying to think if I had to compare it to somebody. We were definitely, not that we sounded like Wisdom in Chains, but definitely listening to bands like Wisdom in Chains and Madball and Gorilla Biscuits, kind of that, getting mixed in there for sure a little bit. It was a lot of fun, and I'm very proud of all the stuff I did with that band.
So then came With Teeth.
And then came With Teeth. Yeah, and With Teeth is, at least to me, it's relatively new. I guess we've been, together for a year and a half-ish, 2 years it existed prior to me being in it, but they didn't have anything recorded. So not another like me replacing someone necessarily. But Gary wrote those songs a long time ago, the first record, and kind of assembled his cast of characters to make it a reality. So
Named after the Nine Inch Nails album?
yes. Now, yeah,
Okay.
I sort of. I guess I can't super speak on it because it had a name before I was in the band. And ironically, like I don't know Gary all that well, but he had approached me about doing a project at one point, several years ago. And I said to him, I was like, because he does this band Empires in Orbit, which is kind of like an electronic kind of band, which is they're actually kind of gone in a different direction, and the world is about to see that direction, and it's awesome what he's doing with this record, and he's got an actual singer for it, and it's gonna be quite different and awesome. Not quite what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something. I was like, well, I know you like Nine Inch Nails and stuff. I like Nine Inch Nails. Can we do kind of like an industrial band? So I had proposed that we do something, and he was like, oh, okay, let me think on that. And then I hear that he's putting together this band with Teeth, and at the time, Billy from Unholy, another Fuse band. Actually, that's kind of a post Santa Sangre band. JD was doing the Jonathan Dennison doing the guitars in that band, but he had Corey drumming at a point. I think Busky played bass at a point, and but Billy from that band, the singer of that band, the second singer of that band, was on an initial vocal duties for With Teeth. It just ended up not working out. But when I heard that they were doing it, I was like, so Gary took my idea and he put Billy, he gave it to somebody else, because with the name like With Teeth, I assumed it was going to be kind of more, Nine Inch Nails, but apparently I kind of took them a long time to come up with a name, and that's just the one that stuck.
That stuck. So, okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's obviously not really Nine Inch Nails, because we don't release Nine Inch Nails, but kind of an homage, I guess, to Nine Inch Nails.
Let's check this out. So tell us about that show.
Yeah, that was our first show. It was with, I think you can see the backdrop there, 18 Visions and One King Down. That show, it was a Hellfest documentary reunion, like the 2000 Hellfest. And actually the 2000 Hellfest was my first time in Syracuse ever. I came to town to I guess attend Hellfest 2000. So I was, in attendance. And then just a few months after that, I ended up moving here, which, was not even in the cards when, when I was, going to the fest there. But
sure.
Yeah, so that was cool. So that was our first show. It's kind of funny because you could see Kyle in the background. Kyle, who was in Ghost Ship, most notably. He was not in With Teeth just yet, but we added a second guitar player, but he was on stage. I think we had already sort of asked him to do it, but he hadn't had enough time to learn anything. So I could see him rocking out on stage with us in the clip, which is funny because now he's just in the band. But yeah, that was a cool first show for sure.
And to speak of Hellfest, wasn't Santa Sangre on the Hellfest DVD commentary? One of the members was. Is that correct?
I was.
Yeah.
And the 2001 one. Well, actually, no, it wasn't really a Hellfest documentary. That was that I did a little commentary thing.
Wasn't it Josh Truskill and I guess it would have been you, and like that, they would play the bands, and then I remember somebody commented about Buried Alive. They were like, every time they play, it's like the first time they've ever played that song. Like that's how like enthusiastic and how much energy they have when they play.
Yeah. I'm actually going to see Buried Alive on Thursday. This
Shit.
coming Thursday is my wife's birthday, and she asked to go to the show. So, not
Nice.
that I wouldn't have gone otherwise, but just kind of,
Definitely my favorite band from that hardcore era. And I was supposed to be at that show at Hellfest. And as I'd mentioned earlier, I've got some family that lives up there, and they kept sending me newspaper clippings like it was going to get shut down because they had to switch venues so many times. And I was like, I'm not going to drive all the way up there and chance it for them not to have a show. But then they did. And I was like, fuck, man. Like that was such a good lineup too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what a
I
drag.
loved Buried Alive back in days. Yeah, I mean, not that I don't love them now, but Scott Vogel as a vocalist has always been one of my favorites. Just such a great performance vocalist. His performance.
Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely my favorite frontman. We're supposed to go see the Buried Alive reunion in I think it was 2017 at the This Is Hardcore. Because I was like, I'll travel for any. I will if they do a reunion. I'll travel from anywhere. And then I got a fucking hernia, and I had to sell my tickets. Yeah, it fucking sucked. I was like, just my luck. All right, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions. So stand by. All right, here we go. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I'm gonna go no.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've had like pineapple and ham maybe at some point, and I feel like it was better than I expected, but nah.
Just don't dig on it, huh?
Yeah, nah, no need for it.
My one buddy said, he's like, you can't have the juicy pineapple. He's like, you got to have kind of like the drier pineapple, or otherwise it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I could see that because it would get, kind of runny.
Extra saturated, yeah. All right. If you're a sports fan, baseball or football?
I am not a sports fan, but I would definitely go baseball. I was a baseball guy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wasn't sure if you were an SU football fan.
No, and having not been from here, basketball is big here.
Yeah, their basketball.
And I will watch some of the SU basketball. I think the football team did better this year than the basketball team did, but yeah, I don't follow it. I don't follow it really.
And the basketball team is generally better than the football team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're kind of known for their basketball for sure.
Yeah. Best places to play nationally or internationally? I don't know if you ever did play internationally.
Internationally only Canada.
Okay.
And I don't know that this has been talked about. It hasn't been a secret necessarily, but Santa Sangre was going to play in Japan in the year 2000. I'm sorry, in the year 2020. So for our 20th anniversary kind of thing. It was all set up. Lots of text back and forth, January, February of 2020, and then we all know what happened in 2020, and it just got scrapped. And that was a major bummer because I have always really wanted to. I think I've wanted a Santa Sangre reunion more so than the other guys, I would say. Probably. They went on and did kind of not necessarily bigger and better things, but they stayed more active than I did, and Santa Sangre has always sort of been my calling card. And I was super excited about getting to go to Japan, period, but also to play those songs again. And then COVID happened, and I always kind of feel like a dick or whatever, but like I remember talking to someone and they were in tears because their kid couldn't have a normal graduation. And I remember just thinking like, well, pretty much everybody graduates. I mean, I know not everybody, but pretty much everybody. And I don't even have the fondest of memories of my graduation day. So that to me is like, who cares? And I'm thinking, man, it's so much more, like I didn't get to go to Japan and play with my old bands, like that to me is a much more devastating kind of thing. But
sure. 9/11 and COVID fucked Santa Sangre.
This band has been nothing but bad luck. Yeah,
catastrophic world events. Yeah, that sucks, man. Definitely. I had a relationship derailed because of COVID, and then ultimately I had to leave Los Angeles because I was just like, what am I doing here? I can't do jack shit. So I just went back to the East Coast, So
yeah,
fucking A. All right. Well, hopefully, I don't know, man. Hopefully that happens someday if the offer's still available.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm always down. I think those guys know I'm always down. The two Jonathans are always. I think they're kind of like brothers in the sense that they're always kind of like loving each other and hating each other. So I think the stars would have to kind of align where they're friends again. And I don't know that they're not friends now. I'm not trying to talk any smack or anything, but. I know that they kind of frustrate one another, so I think that would have to come together. Corey, I think, would be down, although he's always very busy. He's drumming. I think he just said he's drumming in 8 different active bands currently.
Ooh, shit.
So, he's a pretty busy guy, but I think he would make time for Santa Sangre. I think that has a special place in his heart too, and. I'd like to hope that he would just for me, if for nothing else, just if I wanted him to. But
all right, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars for sure. Actually,
you're the third person that's answered that so far.
If you see right here, I don't know if you could see. If you're watching, if you're listening, you're not going to know what I'm doing. But I'm pointing. There is a lightsaber hanging on my wall. That's a Mike Gallo original. Lightsaber that he did, Mike Gallo from Agnostic Front.
Yeah, he's been on the show.
Actually. Yeah. And then actually, right beside of it, if you look, that's a Beastie Boys print that Busky did. My wife got that for me for Father's Day a couple years back, but that's a Beastie Boys print back behind me there. Actually, that's a Mike Gallo Beastie Boys print over my other shoulder. Beastie Boys was one of my favorite bands growing up, for sure.
Best Beastie Boys album?
That's a tough one because they're all kind of different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would have definitely there's points in time when I would have answered the first 4 records individually at a point, even Licensed to Ill, which is kind of goofy, but like it's still like just an iconic record, and Paul's Book is fantastic, and slept on sort of, but critically now I think everybody kind of appreciates it as being one of, if not the best that they did. And then the 2 that followed that, Check Your Head and
Check Your Head, man, that's
Ill
my
Communication.
Favorite.
Yeah, I feel like Ryan from my band, he gave me some questions recently, and I think I might have said Check Your Head on in there. But Ill Communicate, like those 2 records came out kind of like rapid fire in my brain, one after another, and they're both so good. But and kind of sort of similar, but different at the same time. I love both those records. So.
Well, to speak of Ill Communication and Star Trek in the same breath, fucking J.J. Abrams used sabotage like 3 different times in 3 different Star Trek movies because he did the newer ones, and I'm just like, all right, we get it, J.J. You like fucking Beastie Boys, like, come on now. So stupid. And it's one of the plot points of one of them. They use the Beastie Boys song to like bring down this fleet of ships, like the frequency of the music. It's so stupid. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah. That's
cringy.
A little crazy. No, I have not seen that, and I'm not anti-Star Trek, but I'm definitely more Star Wars. To get back to your original the original question there.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I the current state of it has been a little bit lackluster, sans Andor, and I've heralded that show multiple times on this show. because I just think it's some of the best, like not only Star Wars, but some of the best television ever.
Yeah, yeah. First season, they were doing. I mean, it's like they had like a classic bank heist essentially episode. Then they had like a classic jailbreak, kind of movie, and they're like making movies out of these episodes. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, like these are like they could like the episodes kind of stand alone even as like great, like
Yeah, they
singular
wouldn't even
things.
necessarily have to connect. Like you could just watch them as like could be completely different characters within the Star Wars universe and they would work.
Yeah, yeah, and that the The Mandalorian, when it's like the first several episodes, I actually thought they were doing something a little different with that, and I loved it. And I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but I almost thought I got kind of like I don't know if Quantum Leap is the best example, but in my mind it was kind of a quantum leap, like where it was like the first few episodes, if you watch them back, it's like oh, he's leaping to this new land and he's kind of like has these new things he has to do, like he's going to help these people and then by proxy help himself. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I thought it was going to be kind of more like television the way television used to be, where it wasn't like every episode lot or like rides on the last one. And
Right.
and I understand why players do that, but like streaming services and why the television brands now, but they're almost too good in a sense that I want to just watch TV sometimes and not have to like think about what I'm, I gotta like
Yes.
be riding on it. Like if I look away for a second, I miss like a little hand gesture that like totally is pivotal to what's actually happening, and it's like,
The
oh,
full story. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Like I think that's why Star Trek The Next Generation works so well. Even though I love Deep Space Nine, that was my favorite, but they went from episodic television to like a continuing story arc, and it didn't really do well. DS9 didn't in its original run, but then when it came to streaming, it became like everybody's favorite show because like you got like your Game of Thrones and your Sopranos and just like shows that had that one continuous story. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people are looking for now is just that one arc that just goes through the whole series.
yeah, yeah.
And Mandalorian was a lot like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Lone Wolf and Cub movies.
Uh I'm familiar that they exist, but I don't know like the plot points or
Well, the premise is that it's this Japanese like shogun warrior that pushes around a little baby in a cart,
Yeah.
and like he goes to like different towns, and like he's always fighting people, and like sometimes the baby actually like helps him and stuff, and like I was like,
So now that you're saying it out loud, so they just basically redid that.
basically, yeah, I was like, this is just Lone Wolf and Cub, like in
Yeah,
Star Wars,
yeah.
They, and for those who don't know, and if you want to talk about Tarantino, Shogun Assassin was the Americanized version of it. They basically took like 6 films and condensed them into one, like, English language version of it. And then if you ever saw Kill Bill, that's what the bride and her daughter watched was Shogun Assassin. So
Yeah.
little trivia there.
Yeah,
Let's see. Back to questions. Beach or mountains?
Good question. I like to look at a beach, but I am definitely not a beach person. So I'm going to say mountains.
Okay.
I can't go on vacation for a week and just sit on a beach. That's not my thing. So I'll go mountains.
That you do. Okay. All right. I guess it would depend. I've had this discussion and Pacific Ocean, shit, I'll take beach all day. But yeah, Atlantic, dirty mop water. Don't like it. Let's see here. Fantasy concert or show lineup? Maybe 3 artists.
Boy, that's a good question, but I feel like it would require. I'm going to say 3 things and then later go, why did I say those 3? First thing that pops in my head is the Beastie Boys, maybe because we just talked about them. Obviously, it can't exist, with MCA's passing, but even with a hologram, I would still take Beastie Boys. I would love to see them again.
They don't necessarily have to be like bands that have living members either.
Yeah. Well, this is a made up scenario anyway, so
Right.
you can do whatever, right?
Play fast and loose.
Yeah. This is not a show that I'm playing. I'm just witnessing it, that kind of a thing. And it could be
witness or play. Yeah, either
yeah.
or.
I'm trying to think somebody I haven't seen in a while that I really would like to see, or someone I've never seen that I always wished I could. I've seen them, but Faith More. I'd like to see Faith No More. Mike Patton's a great front man. Again, just his style. I only saw him the one time, and that was my takeaway. I was like, and that was before I was a vocalist in anything, and I remember taking away his, specifically like his microphone work. I know that sounds maybe silly, but as a dumb vocalist, now you know how to do. You watch people and how they rock the microphone and yeah, that was cool. So yeah, Beastie Boys, Faith No More, and yeah, maybe I'd love to see Tara with the brothers, still alive. Again, since we're in a fantasy world, I never got to see Pantera. Like I saw the more recent one, rendition of Pantera, and it was awesome. But actually, when Santa Sangre was recording, I was supposed to see Pantera at the same time, but Corey ended up finishing his drums too quickly, and he got to see Pantera, and I was in the studio. So I think that's literally exactly what happened. It was like, oh, hey, you can go with us because you won't be in the studio quite yet. And he ended up nailing his part pretty quickly, and it sped up the timeline. So he got to go in my place. But yeah.
Bummer.
So I missed that one. Yeah.
Dang. I saw Down, I think, several years ago. They were awesome.
Yeah, I've seen them at least once. I feel like probably twice, but I can remember one in particular.
Let's see here. All right. Of your contemporaries of the time that Santa Sangre was playing, 90s, early 2000s, best band to play with?
We did a lot with, Kill Switch, which is just cool today. Not that it wasn't cool to live, because it was definitely cool to live. And I was a fan of that band, prior to meeting them and playing with them. So that was cool. And they were, definitely signed a Roadrunner, but the Roadrunner release wasn't out yet. They were on the precipice of blowing up.
Yeah.
And I think you could sort of feel that, you know what I mean? Even though our shows, unfortunately, weren't well attended, I think it was pretty clear that they were kind of under level. And what was about to happen was what did happen was about to happen. You could sort of feel it in the air.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess that would be my answer, probably.
Okay.
Kill Switch Engage, but we had a lot of fun playing with. It was always kind of more like one-off. We played, I feel like, quite a bit with Ringworm, which was cool to me at the time, because Ringworm, that particular lineup of Ringworm was Frank, who is now in Hatebreed, and Matt, who went on to do Chimera. They were in Ringworm at that time, and Matt had been in Ascension prior to, and that's one of the bands that, when you were asking me at the very beginning, and we're talking a little bit about Don Foose, and Ascension was one of those Cleveland bands that didn't really get where they should have gotten, and they were They were awesome. They're still like, I'm actually about to record a With song that in my mind anyways, blatantly rip off Chris from Ascension, kind of on purpose. I was just like, oh, those songs were so good. Let me try to, because I really sang. I don't like him, so I was like, let me try to like my cadence. Let's try that cadence. And to me,
Homage.
I'm ripping them off, but kind of leaning into that now as I'm doing, this new with Teeth project. As I kind of
Sure. Jim
purposely not rip
LaMarca was
off.
in that band too, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I think you did him too, right?
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
him mentioning that band, but it was not a band that I was familiar with, probably because, like you said, they didn't get their due, but people within the Cleveland area would have definitely known them.
Yeah, and they were on an imprint of Victory called Toy Box. So they were recognized, by on a label perspective, but it just never quite took off, and I don't know the reasoning, but they were awesome. They had a great stage presence. Again, I'm a vocalist, so I pay attention, and Chris was an absolute maniac on stage. And he was kind of like, and in my early years, my formative years, he was kind of like, I hope he doesn't take any disrespect. I don't think he would, because I think he played into it a little bit. He was kind of a nerd. Like, he'd be sitting and studying prior to going on stage, and he had kind of a button-up shirt on and glasses, and then he'd get up on stage and he'd have the button-up shirt off, and he'd have like an Overkill shirt or some metal shirt. He'd be putting it over his head and sticking the microphone in his mouth and just grabbing people's heads and just going completely insane. And it really resonated with me as a young vocalist. So yeah, I love that.
Last question: cats or dogs?
Dogs. They had both, but dogs.
Dogs.
Yeah, I think they got more personality.
What breeds do you fancy?
I'm not. I think big dogs are better dogs, but as far as owning them, I don't. I think they're too big and disruptive and shed a lot of times. So while I like kind of dogs, so I think they probably have the best personalities, like some of like the labs and things. They're also like big dummies and chew up things and get into stuff, and they never quite grow up. So I mean, even though I would prefer those, I'm kind of more of a medium size. I actually currently we have a dog that is looks like a teddy bear, and he's kind of a jerk, but and he likes us okay, but he doesn't like people, and he's very kind of vicious, but he looks like a teddy bear. He's I think they call his breed a teddy bear dog or whatever, but he's very cute, but he's kind of a jerk.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I have a little terrier mix, and we've always had big dogs. Just before him was a border collie. Before that dog were labs and stuff. And definitely a different kind of vibe. A little bit vicious, a little bit kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. But I love him. He's great. Yeah. All right. So, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I know you asked those questions, or that question in particular, and I think it's a great question from an interview standpoint. And I am fortunate enough that I feel very blessed that I've made a lot of good decisions. So I don't have a lot of advice to give my younger self. Like, I could give my younger self advice that would probably work against me ultimately. Like, would have put me maybe in a band that was a touring band, and like you become a professional musician. I'm happy my life didn't go that way. So like any of that kind of advice I don't like. But like probably the biggest piece of advice that give an earlier version of me would be treat even if you don't like somebody, you never know. You may end up liking them. So kind of just treat people with kindness and respect. You don't have to like people, but there's been plenty. Like actually, a lot of my past band members were people that I, not did like, but didn't exactly get along with prior to, or maybe had a chip on my shoulder about, or oh, that guy thinks he's this or that, or
It's weird how
and
that
then they
works,
end up
isn't it?
being like, some of your best friends. So just be mindful of that. Like even at like in a profession, when you're dealing with like even like a competitor, like we have a competitor that will occasionally buy from us, and I actually, I feel anyways that I'm maybe in some ways kinder to them because I'm like, this industry is incestuous. I could be that person's boss at some, or they could be mine. Just be careful what you know what I mean. Don't be like,
Sure.
screw you. Yeah, like it's just. I think that's an important piece of advice. You never know who someone might end up being. Like
Right.
you may find a point where that person that you're bullying or something is someone you need at some point.
Someone in
Maybe you
your
need
orbit again.
yeah.
It's weird how that works out. And you see you have a competitor that buys from you. What do you do as your day job?
Oh, I sell plastic. It's kind of as boring as it sounds. As simple as it sounds. Plastic sheet primarily. Like during COVID, all those plexiglass dividers and things.
Oh yeah.
We were going gangbusters because we sell plexiglass as one of the things.
I was gonna say you were probably booming then.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, it was. It was absolutely, like you couldn't keep it in stock, and
Yeah.
it was just crazy. And just trying to keep track of who needs what when it comes in, and we get like a whole truckload, and and was like, where am I going to put all this? And it's like, well, don't worry about it. It's all sold already, And then like an hour later, you got like trucks lining up to pick it all up, because
Wow.
places needed it to. I mean, they didn't need it, but they needed it to go, to open up, So if you wanted to be a restaurant and be open, you needed plexiglass dividers. If you wanted to be a grocery store, and
yeah, had to have those things up in front of the registers. Yeah. What a crazy time. What is the craziest tour story that you have? Usually like a funny one. Those are generally the good ones.
Yeah, I wish I had a good funny tour story. I really don't. Santa Sangre was so short-lived. I had a little notebook that I had Jack Kerouac on the front, kind of a Beastie Boys reference in my mind anyways, like Reading on the Road by my man Jack Kerouac. It was a Jack Kerouac journal that I carried with me. And I actually almost brought it as like a prop to show for the interview. Honestly, I would love if it had like these eloquently told stories of tour with all these fascinating and fun tales. And I didn't, even though I had my screenwriting, but at that point, I didn't write it very eloquently, and it's just, kind of, more like event over, event. But it definitely did mention a time that I think it was the two brothers from Every Time I Die. I think they stole a rubber snake from a Harris Teeter, and the hilarity that sort of ensues with cops being called and trying to evade in those situations. And I feel like I was riding in their van at that time too, so I think it was because I feel like I was either that or we were like just caravanning or something at the time. That one kind of sticks out. Aside from that, it's more tragic stuff like people stealing the door money in Philadelphia as a building burns in the background,
Oh,
like
was
that
Ernie from Gray Area came on this show? I wonder if that was the same show.
Huh. I don't remember Gray Area being on the bill, and
or Token Entry or one of his bands. In Your Face, maybe.
Yeah, but I do remember it wasn't. I think that there was a venue, a kind of a classic venue in Philadelphia that I've been to, but I don't think played, called Stalag 13.
Okay.
And I don't think this was there, but I think it was in the same like strip. Like it might have been kind of next door to where they used to do shows there or something. And yeah, while bands were playing or whatever, somebody just walked in and took the, whatever, it was probably like a cash box or whatever, and just took it and ran. And that
Wow.
same show, there's like far enough away that it wasn't a danger, but just kind of, but pretty close. There's just a building on fire in the background as we're not getting paid, and it's like it seemed like there was a lot of just little incidences like that where we were just kind of cursed from that was one of the early shows on tour, and it was just
Shit.
cursed from the beginning.
Played with Every Time I Die, and I remember we were in a Waffle House or Denny's. I think it was a Denny's, and we were sitting down in our booth because we had played with them earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like at a booth like that was kind of adjacent from us. Rat Boy walks up and he goes, "Hey, can we borrow this?" And it was a light bulb that was right above our table, and we were like totally confused. We were like, yeah, sure. And he takes it and he unscrews it and he just brings it back to his table. I have no idea what he did with that fucking light bulb, but I think they were just fucking with us. I was like, all right. I was like, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
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 Weird bunch of guys. For
Yeah,
sure.
I love that era with Rat Boy and stuff, kind of the early and my, again, having grown up, kind of in the Cleveland area, I was playing shows with Every Time I Die. I'm seeing them, well before the Santa Sangre days even, and just watching them kind of rise to the level that
Well,
they did too.
that was the best stuff they put out was that Burial Plot Bidding War and the Last Night in Town. That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, Burial Plot, I could take or leave. I do like The Emperor's New Clothes. That song was, kind of their hit at the time that we were touring with them. But Last Night in Town, I always really liked. And honestly, I didn't really follow their career. I know they blew up and they got much, much, much larger. But yeah, I didn't. I kind of fell out of that, I guess.
I didn't follow
Didn't
them
really
along when
follow
they
'em.
started kind of doing the more rock stuff. I was kind of
Yeah,
tuned out
and I
at
think
that
I would
point.
like it. I just, you know how it is. You kind of get stuck in what you listen to, and as you get old, kind of like, why do I need the new Hatebreed record when I don't listen to Satisfaction and Perseverance that often as it is? Like they peaked there. Do I need to listen to something newer? And that's just me. But kind of being a grumpy
Yeah.
old man. I don't have time for music as it is, and if I did, I'd be listening to this.
Right.
I feel very hypocritical. You're like, check out with Teeth, and it's like I wouldn't, but just because I just don't have time for new stuff. But and not to
Well,
say that I wouldn't.
that was going to be my next question. Like, as far as like media is concerned, what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading?
I don't read. I just don't have time for it. I will listen to an audiobook occasionally. Mostly usually boring stuff about retiring or finance or something like that. So nothing too exciting. I don't watch a lot of, again, I've got a 9 and an 11-year-old. They take up a lot of my free time. So I don't watch as much TV and stuff as I'd like to. I'm watching Peaky Blinders again because my wife never saw it and she wanted to watch it because some of her coworkers had mentioned some things about it. So that's what I'm currently watching. And we watched Severance and Pluribus recently. I liked Severance quite a bit. I thought that was cool. And then we talked about some of the Star Wars stuff. I watched a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no new music, no new bands that you can plug.
Not as much as I would like. I for whatever reason I always use this as an example, and I think does Terror have something new that's either coming out or came out or something?
I think they just dropped a new album. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have not heard that one, but the prior record, I remember listening to it when it first came out and thinking this is fantastic. It's like they're one of those bands. It's cool that they're not necessarily like they're still terror. They're not inventing themselves, but they're not just rehashing the same stuff either. And it's interesting still. I remember
Sure.
listening to that record and being like, that was awesome. That's really interesting. But I also never listened to it again. And, and I hate to use that but I use it as an example because I'm like, well, they're one of my favorite bands and I liked it and I don't listen to it. So what makes you think that I'm going to listen
Right.
to something else, so it's hard. I just don't have, I used to listen to so much music when I was like a teenager, I worked at a record store. I just would go for walks and just hours and hours and hours, like I'd be listening to music when I could at school. And I feel like I will be back to that at some point in my life. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
So most of my music focus is honestly Red Teeth stuff. So it's you're listening to a lot of that and or things I'm looking for inspiration from. So I'll listen to some stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
a ton of.
And Tara's just been a steady hand, and remembering the demo and Lowest of the Low, fucking so punchy and just in your face. And I still listen to those albums pretty religiously, but I am kind of like you in that I will give those newer albums a chance, but then it's like maybe I'll revisit them, maybe not. It's like you almost get stuck in this perpetual circle of listening to stuff that you listened to when you were younger and just really kind of
for sure
harnessing that. Yeah. It happens, but I always try to give, and especially Terror, like one of their newer albums, I'll give it one go round and just listen to it back to front, and so yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, they do have a new album, and I actually haven't checked it out, so I'm gonna do that now that I remembered. Where can we find you at online, and do you have any buddy you want to shout out, and what's going on with Teeth? Any new developments?
Well, With Teeth is in the process of recording an EP at the moment. At least I think it's just going to be an EP. At one point, we were talking about maybe a split with someone and an EP. So we'll see. So we've been pretty actively just doing that. We've been turning down a lot of shows. We haven't played since December. There's a few things kind of sort of in the works, I think, but they're far enough on the horizon that nothing's announced yet. But yeah, you could at least check us out. Follow us on social media. I think it's what is it? At With Teeth. They're gonna kill me, right? Let's see.
I'm gonna try to
With
remember
Teeth
this off the top of my
_official.
head.
With Teeth _official on Instagram, anyways. I'm sure you probably can sort of kind of find it.
Yeah, I'm going to post everything in the comments here, everything, but to anybody that's listening on Spotify or Apple Music, yeah, if you got any vocal shout outs.
Yeah, there's a lot of younger bands in Syracuse. All for All kind of comes to mind. Sam from that band, My Hair occasionally. But they're honestly, they're awesome. I think they just had a little, I'd say mini tour, but I think it was 10 shows or so. They kind of went out Midwest and Northeastern United States kind of thing. And they've got a lot of energy and kind of a good following right now. So some of the younger kids are actually doing some really cool stuff. I'm trying to think. Shout out to Mike Valenti in Albany. He's a guitar player for Brick Bike. But Albany has an amazing scene. Actually, our last show we played was in Albany, one of Mike's shows. But he's just doing great things for upstate New York in general, and just an awesome promoter and doing a lot for the scene. So shout out to him. Shout out to Keith Allen, known for doing the Hellfest stuff.
Yeah,
he's kind of doing a new thing, I think, this Endless Fires thing. Definitely doing some shows. I think he's got some stuff in the works, so that will be interesting to see. Cool. I think that'll be good for Syracuse. Binion does some shows here as well. I'm shouting out promoters, but yeah, that stuff's really important just to keep the scene, going and alive, and give, bands like us an opportunity to have a place to perform and show the world what we got. We're all kind of veteran guys, and we play with a lot of heart, and even though we're getting older, so yeah, a lot of energy.
Well, Kevin, man, I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank anybody that's attended the stream. And like I had mentioned earlier, like, comment, share, subscribe, and click on the bell for notifications. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a follow, give us a rating. Any engagement that you give the channels, like, that will make it so that other people will be able to discover the channel, and other people will be able to hear and support these amazing artists. So even if it's just a memory of seeing a show from back in the day, you can post a comment in there. Oh yeah, I saw Santa Sangre in 2000, and somebody stole the cash box, and there was a building burning in the back. It was me, motherfucker. Yeah. If anything would help, please. And yeah, the ratings on Spotify, that'd be great. So, and as I had mentioned earlier, I've got a merchandising company, Hell's Heart Merch Co. Going over to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code podcast for 20% off your entire order. Find Bella Canvas, Next Level Tri-Blend t-shirts. They feel amazing. If you like movies, if you like hardcore, check them out. I think you'll really be into them. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Namaste, jobless, be good, and thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hell's Heart, life's a game. Money, power, the price of fame.